To one of our top stories this morning is the preparations for the official funeral underway at Scenery Park Sports Ground in East London. Our reporters Pulele Tswiti-Jones and also Aviwe Mtila are there for us, but you can see first of all with Inyala's behind you, Pulele Tswiti-Jones. Let's come back to you just over an hour from now. The official program will get underway. What do you have for us?
Yeah, definitely, Gareth. And what we're also witnessing now is members of the family actually making their way into the marquee. We've seen some members of parliament as well. We're also seeing community members, activism groups, and other officials such as the SAPS making sure that this area is quite protected and ensuring that the safety of everyone here is prioritized. But at the center of it as well, we're focusing on what we've been hearing throughout the week as well in terms of the oversight that's been played by some members of the portfolio committee in ensuring that some of these shebeens and nightclubs around in this area are compliant and working within the prescripts of the law. Joining me right now, I'm speaking to the Deputy Minister of State Security, Mr. Zizi Kodwa. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kodwa, on eNCA this morning. So maybe let's just start off with government's role here in ensuring that the safety of young people is prioritized, but particularly speaking to the issue of facilities and recreational facilities to ensure that this does not happen again. What's in process? What are you looking into here?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's quite sad that I met with you in East London at a moment such as this, where we are joining families of 21 children who perished. This is a national grief. That is why we are joined by, among others, the President of the Republic as part of the chief mourners to talk to the families, to really comfort them during these difficulties. I think there's a collective effort, all of us as the families and society and all stakeholders who must take responsibility. Some of these incidents, this may be an isolated incident. Not so long ago, we had an incident of what something is called Mavuso at somewhere in Pretoria. There was very little outrage in society about such an incident. And I think there are things that we have almost lived and accepted as society, and yet they are immoral. So I think this must be a learning. This incident must be a learning for all of us. It means all stakeholders must come together, government in terms of the regulation, the liquor board, some of the things that government can do to make sure that there is enough recreational facilities for children and young people to take them away from some of these things, including whether do we reduce or increase the access to some of these places where young people go to, including the drinking age. There's a discussion about drinking age from 16, 18 to 21. Others even saying even 21 should increase it to 25. But how do you make sure that the enforcement of those regulations, because the difficulty has always been the enforceability, because it's tavern owners, it's those who own these outlets who themselves have got a responsibility. Some of these people who come with fake identities and so on. And I think there are a number of challenges, but this must be the last and this must be the learning.
Mr. Kodwa, you speak about there having to be, some sort of sentiments in looking into these issues, particularly around the age restriction and threshold as well. But we're also seeing that there's been oversight being played, and there's been talk from community members saying this is not the only tavern. Most of them are not complying. They've been operating like this for not even months but years. Is this a crisis that we're witnessing? Is this something that's urgent that you need to look into as government to ensure that it does not happen again? Particularly when you make reference to what you say, Mavuso in Pretoria, the Chatsworth nightclub incident that took place in around 2001, in Khayelitsha as well in 2015. These are just ongoing patterns which show that nothing has been done before. Does this set the call to urgency to say you need to look into this and not just turn a blind eye to it?
What we need to do, not only government alone, it's like to think that the police on their own will monitor, they will be next to each outlet. You need to strengthen community participation. You need community-based structures from them, including working with government and police to take responsibility. And I think unless there is this cooperation of all stakeholders, we will continue to have these problems. I can agree more with you. This is the tip of the iceberg. There are many such problems. I remember not so long ago when I was still very young in the Youth League, we had a campaign to say you can't have taverns next to a school. whilst during the conducive learning environment, there is a blaring sound about people who are drinking and so on, because it sends something else to the children. And I'm sure the Department of Basic Education took campaign and policy around that issues. And these are issues that campaign and community-based organizations must take up, because these are young people who have lost here, this 21, we have lost teachers. We have lost people like yourselves. We lost doctors. We lost presidents. We lost mayors. We lost people who could have been better people to build this country.
Just in 30 seconds, I know I have to wrap up quick, but maybe just what's the next plan of action from government? I know you said that various stakeholders have come to board to see what they can do about this issue, but is there like an active plan in uplifting this community as well here?
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday there was an old stakeholder meeting held by the Premier of the Eastern Cape at a national level. Some of the issues I think the President would allude to as he speaks here about what intention beyond this community. But as I said, all other communities, because as you know, this is everywhere. It's not only here in Scenery Park.
Thank you very much for joining us on eNCA. That's the Deputy Minister of State Security, Zizi Kodwa, there briefing us just in conclusion, saying that the President will outline some of those intentions as to how they look to uplift some of these communities just after this tragic incident had happened here in just about a few kilometers away from Scenery Park at the venue where we are. It looks as though there are plans in place, but hopefully these will be active plans that ensure to inspire change in some of these communities, Gareth.
Yeah, and it's the viewer question that we're asking on eNCA this morning. Pule, you put it very nicely to Zizi Kodwa, is about the drinking age limit. Currently 18, there is that suggestion in the President's letter this week that it goes up to 21, 25, but in the end, it's the implementation of the laws. And you've been covering this story, so has Aviwe Mtila as well. And the children that were inside this tavern were known to the tavern owners and the security. These weren't strange children and teenagers that were there, and that's the issue in the end, isn't it? It's the implementation of the law. It doesn't matter what age you make it. If the laws aren't being abided to, you can make the age limit anything you want.
Yeah, definitely. This is a growing concern. It's something that needs to be looked into properly. I mean, you go to the communities. One lady had actually spoken to one of our media colleagues saying that they had reported this incident before. There was a letter which she showed to say they had a set of grievances before to say this tavern closes late, there's noise happening, and there's children who are drinking there who are under the age restriction, and therefore this calls for concern. And the tavern owner at Nyombeni had responded to say that he'd look into this plan. Fast forward months later, we witnessed this tragic incident. So it goes to show that not only is this incident being reported, but it's also an issue of the backlog and how seriously is it taken by law enforcement when community members raise this flag to say there are issues in their community. So it'll be quite interesting how government actually tackles the issue of the age restriction limit and how they ensure that they can enforce much more stricter regulations at some of these taverns that would not be operating within the prescripts of the law. I mean, it does call for great concern to say that this is something they really need to look into before we could anticipate another tragic incident before our eyes when we could have prevented all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also got Aviwe Mtila, who we're waiting for. Pule, we're going to go to Aviwe in a couple of minutes from now. We're expecting him to show us the movement of the cortege, the arrival of the cortege at the venue this morning. As well, in fact, my team telling us we can go across to Aviwe now. So Pule Letswiti Jones for us on the grounds in Scenery Park. We'll come back to Pule later.